Welcome to the replay. Hello, tea family. It's another Sunday, and we are here together. First, before we get too much further, I'm going to move. I usually kind of sit, but I want to say a shout out to my friend who got me this amazing shirt, and I had to wear it on the live. She doesn't always get to watch the live. Sometimes she watches on the replay, but it's a super cute shirt, and I thought I'd wear it. Shout out to her. Thank you so much. It was such a sweet thought. I appreciate you. All right. How is everybody today? It has been a really, really busy week. In fact, it has been busier than it should have been. This should have been a slow week, and it wasn't for me. So how is it for you? I see that we've got a couple people, probably people that know that we come here every week, but if not, I want you to just know that if you have a question, just go ahead and put it in the comments, write out your comment. We will be monitoring. I don't have a handy dandy assistant helping me as much as I normally do because he's doing something else right now that's very important. So we're just gonna kind of wing it just a little bit more than we normally do. But welcome. We appreciate you coming, and we want to start off today about talking about milk teas versus lattes. I had a lot of questions on this lately. What's the difference between them? Are they the same thing? And so I thought I would just take a second and talk about that on our chat. Obviously, we need to start the tea. You can't spill the tea until we start the tea because we definitely need to brew the tea. And today I'm actually going to make a latte on air. I did do a reel not long ago in my Tea Basics series about how to make a latte, so you can dig down and try and find that, but I'm going to make one right here. So just pay attention to this one, and I'll give you a couple of my secret tips. It's funny, I had a friend reach out, and she made a latte, and she's like, it didn't come out quite right. It's like, what's your, how do you do it? And then I shared it with her, and she tried that one, and it came out a lot better for her, and I was glad. So we're going to let this heat up. We're going to make a black tea latte today. So I'm not using my ruby chai or anything like that. I'm actually going to use Serene Sunrise. Now, we all know this is Lisa's favorite blend. Yes, this is my favorite one. This is black tea from Sri Lanka, as well as cinnamon from Indonesia, and it is my go-to. This is my ultimate favorite. You hear me talk about this a lot, only because it's my favorite. So, I wanted to show that to you, and I can show you what it looks like. So, I have that cute little tin, and that's for sale, but, I know we talked about storage last week, and I talked about, airtight and black. Well, this is where I purchase the teas separately from the business for my own personal stash, and it's almost time to make some more. But there you go. That's my tea. So we're going to go ahead and my spoon, which will get me 2.5 grams, which is what I want. And I'm going to and I'm using a deeper infuser, basket infuser today, because you'll notice I have a special cup for my latte, and this is the best infuser for that one in particular. Now, I'm going to put that to the side, and we're waiting for this to go up. So, again, questions, just put them in the comments, no problem. You're going to see me looking down because I'm trying to watch comments and look at the camera all at the same time. Let's see. So, milk tea. What is milk tea, right? Well, milk tea is kind of like the big umbrella, any tea with any kind of milk in it, right? However, specifically, it typically refers to black or oolong teas. Now, they can be hot or they can be cold, but a black or an oolong tea that people have added milk to. Now, I will say that I drink, a fair amount of black tea, probably 50-50 with my green teas at this point. However, I like, with certain of them, for instance, Morning Irish, which is our most caffeinated blend. I did a post about starting that the other day. as I was off to work on Friday with it. But that is a straight blend of black teas. And so what I like doing with that one is black teas can be very powerful. And I grew up, my grandparents immigrated from Great Britain to the United States. So I grew up having a tea time every night, and that was around my bedtime, their tea time. So kind of one of those things. And they just did it, their tea had a sweetener, typically sugar, and it had milk in it. And so that's how I thought tea was supposed to be. And it really helps if you go into a restaurant and you are having some of that bagged tea that's not so nice because it's all bitter because it's mostly tannic acid in the fannings and the dust is what we call it. And so that's really highly acidic, and the milk helps balance that a little bit. However, that is not what we want. Now, I can do this. I can do it so you can pour it. This makes my husband super nervous every time he sees me lifting, so that you guys can see, because he's like, wait. Now you are going to notice, this came up not pure clear. I used this glass before. This is not my first latte of the day. I had one earlier. All right, and so now we are going to set a little timer here for 3 minutes. I knew I put my phone someplace. We all know that it's one of those days. I talked about that at the beginning. Completely one of those days. So, all right. Well, that is brewing. So when I have black tea, when I would go into a coffee shop or something like that, even if they had a higher quality tea, I got used to having black teas with milk. I can drink them without. Sometimes I enjoy them without. But there's a lot of times, especially if it's just black tea, then nothing else added in, I like it with milk in it. So I will take my tea, I will brew it. I will typically stick a stevia, or if I was having sugar or honey or whatever in there for my sweetener, stir that up, and then I will add milk. And it's funny, I have a hard time ordering tea out, first of all, because I don't want the bag teas. That's just number one. Number two, I have some local coffee shops. Now, we all know I don't drink coffee. However, local coffee shops that actually have decent quality teas, or I just kind of bring in my own, and because I know the owner, I can use my own tea. They just give me some hot water. But what I always would do prior to even making the teas myself is I would say, hey, can I have that? And then could you add some cold milk on the top? And they're like, well, you want a latte? I'm like, no. I need the cold milk to cool it off. Mostly because it was first thing in the morning. I was on my way to the office. I didn't have a chance to make it at home. And I needed to be able to consume that caffeine as rapidly as possible. And so I didn't want to wait the extra, 2-3 minutes for it to cool down. So added the cold milk to it so that would happen. That is one of the things that I used to do. But it used to confuse baristas a lot. Now, if you go to local places like I do, I'm not a fan of the chains, the big, huge chains. I love shopping small businesses, local businesses, etc. And so I'll go in there and they know what I'm going to want already because they know me. And so I will go ahead, and that's what a milk tea is. It's just a tea with milk in it. Now, if you cold brewed some tea and you added milk to that, like you make, well, in the coffee world, they call it an iced coffee, and it can have milk in it. We don't call iced tea that has milk in it because iced tea is just cold tea over ice. So, but if you had added milk to your cold brew, and you having an icing down your hot tea, it would still be considered a milk tea. Now, the other thing that we were going to talk about is a latte, and we're about 14 seconds or so away from this being brewed and us being able to make a latte. Now, a latte can be done by a barista. I am not a barista. Never have been. Don't plan to be anytime in the future either. Yay, the brew's done. Okay, so we just take this out. And then I have another brew for that. Actually, I'll have 2 more because I did use fresh. All right, now, this is where you're going to make it. Now, I typically, if you noticed, I scooped in around it as opposed to a flat spoon with my teaspoon. Normally the flat spoon is the 2.5 grams, but I actually did a heaping spoon. And that's because this is bigger. And when you make a latte, you're adding more milk than you normally would if you were just putting a tiny bit in to cool it off for the tea. In a milk tea, typically you're adding more with the latte. Because of that, I want to brew this just a touch stronger. You know, I add a little bit more, or I could brew for an extra 30 seconds or so. However you wanted to do that works. Now, this is the point in time I always suggest people add a sweetener. If you are wanting a sweetener, this is it. And I'm not going to judge. One of the times we'll talk about sweeteners because there are like tea candies and things like that that a lot of people think are cool. They have advantages and disadvantages. We'll probably talk about that. And I know I've talked about honey. You don't want it over a certain temperature, otherwise you lose all the goodness of it, other than the flavor, which is still amazing. So, but this is where you would add your simple syrup, your flavored syrup, whatever you wanted to do to your latte. Now, I have milk here that was really kind of hot and warm right before we started. I do not have a steamer at my house. So you could steam your milk and add the foam in and heat the milk all at the same time. That's not how it works in our house. We have a tiny little saucepan. We will heat this up. I don't recommend using a microwave to do it, although I know a lot of people do, but microwaves just kind of kill everything good about the fresh local milk that we have. But what I do have is this cute little frother that I got, but this is why I want it in a big jar, and it's battery operated, so I can just charge it, which means I don't have to use it. And all I'm doing is I put it on, oh, and I accidentally turned it off because that's how life goes, and I'm swirling it around, and if I pull it up and down a little bit, I'm creating a nice little foam, and it's a matter of how much foam do you want. So let's see if I can show you. That has some foam. Gonna make a mess. I want a little bit more than that, so I'm gonna let it go, and you just kind of watch. Now, if you're a fancy barista, there's one at Brothers Coffee in Manhattan, Kansas, and he does competitions and everything. He knows that certain of those designs that they make, that artwork, that's absolutely incredible. The milk and the foam have to actually be at certain temperatures, which is always an interesting thing, and so I thought I would share it with you. So here's the thing. You've seen in the video where I spooned some of the foam right on it because I only wanted the foam. Well, you don't have to spoon it. I thought I'd do it a different way. And I'm just going to pour, and I get both milk and foam. There's a little left, that's okay. My assistant will have it. And look, this now has two very different colors. No foam mustache. Have to make sure no foam mustache. And when we look at it a little bit longer, you're going to see it's going to start to blend. The foam will come down a little bit, and then it'll be a lighter, and it'll be kind of more consistency. But that's it. That's all you have to do for a latte. So if you can give yourself an extra, 2-3 minutes at the house, you can make your own tea latte and not have to pay, I don't even know what the price is anymore, $6, $7 for a tea latte. And look, that's super cute. It looks amazing. Now, you could sprinkle a little cinnamon on top, a little nutmeg. A friend of mine made the suggestion, and they're absolutely right. They sprinkled a tiny bit of our mocha mint tea on it, so it gave it like a chocolate peppermint finish, just a pinch of it. You could just do regular shaved chocolate a little bit like that. Whatever kind of toppings that you would do. We typically stick to like cinnamon and nutmeg, potentially chocolate, depending. And you've got a really fancy latte. And if you're not trying to show anybody with a clear glass, you throw that sucker in your to-go and you are set and off to work. No having to stop, no going through drive-thrus or going in. Oh, that is so good. So one of the reasons why I do add the sugar at that point or the sweetener at that point, there is a specific reason for that. And that is so that I don't mess up my foam. Because if I put it in here now and I stir it, I'm going to mix the foam in. The foam is going to start to break down. And it's not going to have that telltale like latte kind of look to it. So one of the things I wanted to also mention is that there are those that are like, well, why don't I just heat the milk and brew the tea in the milk? I don't recommend that. First of all, because you're going to have to use a lot more tea. Second of all, you're going to have to really heat your milk up super hot, and you're not going to get the same kind of infusion from your tea leaves. And you're going to go through so much more tea than you really need to. Just brew it in the water. Now, here's where my friend had an issue. She was trying to figure out, well, how much tea to how much foam? Well, I typically do about 2/3 of my glass. Shh, don't tell my secret. 2/3 of my mug or my glass or my cup with the tea and about 1/3 with the milky foam. That is just about perfect for me. I do know some people that do 50-50. But you're going to find that balance for you for milk, because there's definitely going to be more milk in this latte than there would be in that milk tea that I normally would drink with a black tea. So why would I do milk with a tea? Well, I'll tell you, I only put milk in black teas and oolong teas. I do not add milk in my herbals, and I do not add milk, in my green teas. I just don't like those flavors. You could, everybody creates their tea a different way. I don't recommend it. A lot of people are like, well, what about lemon? Lemon works for a lot of people. However, never mix lemon and milk in your tea at the same time. You need to do one or the other. So I don't recommend both. The lemon and the milk react. The milk tends to curdle, turns a little bit into buttermilk in some situations. It's really not good on your tummy. You're going to then have to stop drinking that tea and start grabbing some Nautical Twilight to help your tummy settle. But I typically think if I'm going to use lemon or something on that idea, I would typically do it in like a green tea. But I'm not a huge fan. Yep, that's right, Diane. Buttermilk, not what you want in your tea. I'm sure that there are people who would enjoy that. They like a more tangy. I'm not one of them. And I don't feel like it brings out the right flavors of your tea. But again, if that's what you want to do, I won't say no. But yeah, we don't add lemon and milk in the same cup at the same time. So for me, personally, I like my green teas pretty much straight up. I don't even necessarily sweeten them. And my herbals, it depends. I might add a little bit of sweetener. I might add a little bit of honey or something on that idea. The only teas that I add milk to tend to be the black and oolong teas. So I haven't seen any questions yet, so I'm just going to kind of keep going. And that's okay. I do want you all to keep in mind that next week is going to be our big question and answer, so feel free to save those and then send them to me during the week or put them in the comments and we will answer them then. But yeah. So I kind of talked about that. You know what? Let's take a break from that subject for a second, and I'm going to talk about this. So I happen to have this morning Irish that I showed you earlier. It's not what I'm drinking, but it would if the buttermilk was used to make a muffin to go with your latte. Now that is a time that we could use the buttermilk, Diane. If the buttermilk was used to make the muffins to go and eat with your latte, then I don't have a problem with it. But the morning Irish, we put up on our Facebook earlier this week that we were kicking around the idea of doing something special for Leap Year Day. There's only one every 4 years, and we happen to have it this year, and so we are going to do something. And I will tell you, those of you that are either watching us live, there's a few of you, or those of you that are going to watch on the replay, one of the things that will be on sale during that day is our morning Irish, because it's the last day of February, and we're not that far away from St. Patrick's Day. And what's more Irish than morning Irish tea? So this will definitely be one of the items, though I wanted to share it with you, that morning Irish will definitely be on sale the day, leap year day. There might be some other things. I would say maybe keep an eye on our Facebook page. You might get a sneak peek of a couple other things that might be around or not. I like to show a couple of things to see how they go and if people are interested or not, what we get reactions on, different things like that. So I'm going to take another sip of my latte because it's really yummy. Okay. All right, so coming back to this, I do want to talk just a little bit. A lot of people have talked about bubble tea, and they get confused about that because they've heard bubble tea. It also has milk, so is bubble tea and milk tea. Bubble tea is basically any tea beverage that has milk in it, although typically it has something else added, like tapioca or other toppings in it that make it more of the bubble tea. But technically any tea with milk in it is considered a milk tea, and then we have specific lattes. So that was something else I wanted to talk about. All right, and then there we go. Let's see, I had one other thing. I told you the proportions and lattes. Lattes can be cold. I wanted to talk about this for a second. Lattes can be cold. You can do a cold foam. Like I talked about the milk here, and we had warmed it up. But you don't have to, because it doesn't technically have to be steamed. You can just use your frother foamer. I don't even know, or doesn't have, I believe it's a frother, milk frother. These, you could have ice cold milk in here, and so if you were making a cold tea, or a tea to go over ice, I don't want to say iced tea because where I grew up, iced tea is a powder, and it has lemon and tea crystallized. You add water and it's cold with, you serve with ice. And then in other parts of the country where I've lived, iced tea is just brewed like black tea that's cold and has ice in it. And then of course there's sweet tea where you have practically equal parts sugar to equal parts brewed tea. At least that's how my daughter always made it when we lived in Georgia and South Carolina. So there are different things for iced tea. So I typically say cold tea that's over ice, just so that everybody's really, really clear. But you don't have to heat the milk to froth it. That is not something you have to do. You could take this milk right out of the fridge, pour it into, and I like the big pint jars because it doesn't splash and make a mess. And who wants to make a mess? Not me, especially when it's milk all over the place, so you know you have to clean it right away. And so, yeah. And I typically have a little left over in there. Like I said, this much isn't that big of a problem because my handy dandy assistant, who's now over here, he's going to end up having some kind of, I don't know if he'll drink tea or if he'll have a coffee latte tonight as well. But you could take it right out of the fridge, pour it in there, froth it up, and have a cold foam as well. So that's kind of what I wanted to share.
When I was a kid in school, I'd take my straw and blow bubbles in my milk, and it would like...
Okay, we're not listening to that conversation anymore. I thought he was going to add something a little better than that to the conversation, but I should have known better. But again, thank you for my shirt. I love my shirt. And next week, please, questions and answers, so have them ready. The other thing we're going to talk about is food pairings. So feel free to shoot us a comment or a message or some sort of way of getting a hold of us and saying, are you more interested in pairing it with foods like meats or baked goods or meals or different things like that? Let me know what what kind of pairings we want to talk about. That being said, thanks for joining us, and I will see everybody hopefully next week.